Ezra Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Shavuos Daf Daf Yud Gimel, and we're going to be beginning from Daf Yud Beis and Beis on but towards the last third of the daf Yud Beis and Beis. Al Sha'ar Aveir Shebetoris Hakalas V'Chamuris Hasdonis V'Hashgogos. Mishnah said we're going to be discussing today the we're going to be discussing today the the Sa'ir Azazel. Mishnah said that on any other Avera, whether you do it on the light Averas, the severe Averas, the ones you do it on purpose, the ones you do it by mistake, the Sa'ir Hanasa, that the Sa'ir Hazazel, the goat that you throw off the mountain on Yom Kippur, that brings about a kapara for every Avera. So first, the Gemara wants to understand the Mishnah. Hainu kalis, what is an easy mitzvah that the seir la'azazel brings a kapara? Hainu asay v'loisasay. That's if you do do an avera, whether it's a positive commandment or a negative commandment. Chamuras, what makes something a severe avera? Hainu krisis umisas bezdin. You do something that you chayav koris or misas bezdin. That's called a severe mitzvah. Let's say Shabbos would be a severe mitzvah. Eating a nevela would be a light avera. Hoida hainu mezid. The Mishnah continues that if you know about it, that means you did it on purpose. Loi hoida hainu shoygeg. That means you did it by. If you don't know about it, that means you did it by mistake. So the Mishnah seems to repeat itself. It already said hazadonis v'hashgogos, right? The chulu. Then the Mishnah says hoida loy hoida, which seems to imply whether you know about it, you did it on purpose, or you did it by mistake. All these things, the seir lazazel is mechaper. So hoida and loy hoida is the same as donis v'hashgogos. So the Gemara is asking, why did it repeat it twice? Amar Yehuda hachikama. This is what the Brisa means to say. Ashar aveir shebetorah. And any other Avera in the Torah, Ben Kalis, Ben Chamurais, Ben Shasum B'Shoik, Ben Shasum B'Beis. No matter what Avera that you did in the Torah, you did it by mistake, we did it on purpose. And a subcategory, Ois and Shasum B'Shoigig, those that you did it B'Shoigig, that you did it by mistake, and you would have been Chayav and Asham Tolui, that's another, normally an Avera that you do by mistake, if the b'mezid you would have gotten kares, then b'shoigig you get you have to bring a carbon chatas. But then the Gemara there's a carbon osham tolui. Someone who has two pieces of meat in front of him. One is chaylev and one is non-chaylev. One is kosher, and he ate from the plate, and he doesn't know if he ate the chaylev or if he ate the kosher. So then the pasuk tells us that you have to bring an asham toli. So that asham toli is the chiddush that sometimes if it's before Yom Kippur and then is Yom Kippur, then you don't have to bring the asham toli anymore because you got a kapara from the sa'ir la'azazel. So you read it inside. Those that you did by mistake, whether you recognize that you did it, you knew your suffix, that you knew that you ate a suffix chaylev. You never. It's before Yom Kippur. You ate you don't know that you ate suffix chaylev. You never even became aware of that. So you don't have to bring after Yom Kippur an Ashram Toloi when you know about it, because you already had kapara through Yom Kippur. So Haida V'loi Haida is just not explaining everything. It's just explaining that there's certain shoygegs that even after Yom Kippur you don't have to bring a carbon, which is something called an Ashram Toloi. Now the Gemara says. The Elohein colors, the Mishnah said, these are the light mitzvahs, essay v'loisasay. The Elohein chamures, the severe averis, are karisis or Mrs. Bezin. The one that you can't karis, or the one that you Bezin will kill you. Says the Gemara, So what do you mean? They throw the animal off the mountain, and you get a kapara. Let's say you didn't put on tefillin, right? Let's say a person doesn't put on tefillin. So all of a sudden he gets a kapara on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara asks, "Hi, ese hechidami. How is it possible? What's the scenario that you're getting a kapara on violating the mitzvah saseh? If you didn't do tshuva, zevach rishoim toyeva, then how could if you're not doing tshuva, the fact that they're going to throw a sayer off a mountain, you're going to get a kapara? Any act of a rasha is despicable by the Eibishter. In other words, if you're not doing tshuva, so what's going to help to throw the goat off the mountain if you're not doing tshuva? Eid of tshuva, but if you did tshuva on a mitzvah saseh, kol yom menami, then you can do tshuva every day. I mean, what do you need to sorry hanasa bezazel? Sorry that you throw off the mountain. Every day that you do tshuva, you get a kapara. The Tanya we learned in the mitzvah brisa of varal mitzvah saseh. Let's say a person violated a mitzvah saseh, did not put on tefillin. Well, so tshuva and did tshuva. Loy zaz misham. You don't have to move from the place that you did tshuva. They give him he has forgiveness right away. So what is the scenario that Sayer Lazazel is coming to bring about a kapara? If you did tshuva, you don't need the Sayer Lazazel. If you didn't do tshuva, then what's it going to help that you did that the Sayer Lazazel? So here, the Gemara says a fascinating thing. Amar Abzera said, we go to Amid Aleph, Yud Gimel, but Amid B'mirda. He still never did tshuva. And therefore, you're going to say, then why would he bring about a kapara? A Mishnah is like Rebbe, who holds Yom Kippur is mechaper, whether even if you didn't do tshuva, you just didn't do tshuva, you didn't put on tefillin, then you come Yom Kippur, you have a kapara through the Yom Kippur. The pasuk says Zevach Rishoim Tieva. If you're not doing tshuva, you don't get a kapara. That's on the rest of the year. But on Yom Kippur, everybody gets a kapara, even if you didn't do tshuva. The Tanya we learned in a brisa. Rebbe says, "Akol avera shabbatayra." Any avera that you do in the Torah, bein asa tshuva, whether you do tshuva, and here's the key: bein loy asa tshuva. Even if you don't do tshuva, Yom Kippurim mechaper. Yom Kippur brings you an atonement. So chutz, there's exceptions. 3 averas that you do that even if you don't do tshuva, you're not going to bring about a kapara. One is mipyrek oil, umigal uponim b'Torah. That means pyrek oil means you deny a God. You're an atheist. Megal uponim b'Torah means you believe in the Torah, but you think that the Torah has mistakes in it, like Menashe. Or the king Menashe would sit down and talk about the Torah and say, "Oh, why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to write Timna was a Pelegish, or Vayelech Reuven b'mei Kitzir Chitim?" There's certain extra things that's unnecessary in the Torah, so he speaks with chutzpah against the Torah. So, and the third thing is, even if you believe in God, even if you believe in the Torah, but you don't like bris milah or beifer bris babasa, and you nullify your bris milah. You take an operation to cover up that you ever had a bris milah. Even those 3 averes, Shem also tshuva, if you do tshuva, Yom HaKippurim mechaper. Yom HaKippurim brings about atonement. V'im lav, ein Yom HaKippurim mechaper. If you don't do tshuva, then Yom Kippur will not forgive you. But it's those 3 are the exception that you need to do tshuva. Pyric oil, begal uponim b'Torah, mefer bris babasa. But the rest, every other avera, you don't even have to do tshuva. Yom Kippur is automatically a kapara. Not just Yom Kippur, it's the Sa'il Azazel. My time at the Rebbe. Why does the Rebbe say that these 3 things you need to do tshuva for? The Tanya we learned to the Brisa, Kidvar Hashem Baza. A person shamed the word of God. So that refers to somebody who shames the only 2 mitzvahs we heard directly from God, which is Anoichi v'lo yiyelecha. So Zeh Parak Oil Umagal Uponim b'Torah. That refers to somebody who unburdens himself from the yoke and tries to display disdain for the Torah. And you nullify God's mitzvah. Zehamefer bris babasa. If a person tries to undo his bris milah. He takes an operation to undo his bris milah. So all these things, there's a pasuk that says he kares tikares. You're gonna be cut off. You will be cut off. Cut off. You will be cut off. What does that mean? He kares lifnei Yom Kippur. If you don't do tshuva before Yom Kippur, you're gonna die young. Tikares lach Yom Kippur. Even after Yom Kippur, which normally Yom Kippur brings about atonement, even if you didn't do tshuva. Here, even after Yom Kippur, you will get no atonement. So that's clearly that. So therefore, that's how these three things are the exception. Yachal afilu asa tshuva. I might think that even if you did tshuva on those three things, you'll never get a kapara. Talmud loima avoina ba. Only if you have this avera. Lo yamarte el b'zman shavoina ba. I only said this only at when you're holding on to the avera, you didn't do tshuva. But if you did do tshuva, then even with these three averas, you can get kapara. But other averas, even if you didn't do tshuva, Rebbe holds a fascinating opinion that you will get a kapara. No, and that's what our Mishnah holds. Our Mishnah holds that the sa'ir la'azazel, even if you didn't do tshuva, as soon as that goat falls off the mountain, you get a kapara. Says the Gemara Rabbanan. Rabbanan hold that even by other averas, Yom Kippur doesn't bring about a kapara if you don't do tshuva. So what makes these three averas very different, right? There, the Rabbanan will say it's not talking about Yom Kippur. It's talking about in the future world, because hikares ba'olam hazeh. Hikares means these three averas you'll be cut off from this world. Tikares l'olam haba, you'll be cut off in olam haba. That means that Rabbanan agree that if a person doesn't do tshuva, there is a possibility you will get kapara. How? Because once your person dies, somehow the pain of death cleanses a person, right? So you do any avera, the pain of death brings about somewhat of a cleansing. But these three averas, even if you die, you will always have this stain of the avera on you. And tikares l'olam haba. But only if you didn't do tshuva, avayna ba. Only if you didn't do tshuva and died, then you'll still have this stain of this avera. But shem asa tshuva. But even with these three averas, if you did tshuva meis, misa mimarekes, misa would cleanse you. So every other avera, even if you didn't do tshuva, the death will cleanse you. These averas, you need to do tshuva in order for death to clean you. But Rabbanan hold, just stop not doing tshuva and not doing tshuva, and Yom Kippur, you don't have a kapara. In fact, you can get punished for that. Because Rabbanan hold that Yom Kippur is just not a freebie, you get kapara without doing tshuva. So that's the opinion of the Rabbanim. But our Mishnah disagrees with that. Our Mishnah's opinion of Rebbe, and Rebbe holds that even without doing tshuva, you get an atonement. Says the Gemara, Umi maitzis mak misma Rebbe. Can you say our Mishnah goes according to Rebbe? Well, mid the Sefer Rebbe Yehudi, Reishanami Rebbe Yehudi. The author of our Mishnah must be Rebbe Yehuda, because the end of the Mishnah is Rebbe Yehuda. So the beginning of the Mishnah is Rebbe Yehuda. What is the end of the Mishnah teaching you? The Tani Sefer, the end of the Mishnah says that Echad Yisrael v'Echad Kohanim v'Echad Koy Mashmiya, that everybody gets on every Aveira, whether you're Kohen or Levi Yisrael, the Sa'ir HaMishtaleach, the Sa'ir La'azazel brings about a kapara. So that, it says Kahanim get a kapara for the Sa'ir La'azazel. Uman Isli Haisvara, who holds of this opinion? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is that opinion. Michlal, the Reish Rabbi Yehuda, that the beginning of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. So, how could you say the author of the Mishnah is Rabbi? That we see that the end of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, so it must be the whole Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. So, nothing wrong with that. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi. But the Gemara says it the opposite way. Amar of Yosef, really, the Mishnah is Rebbe. The Mishnah is Rebbe. The Sava like Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that the Ksari Lazaza is not exclusively for Yisraelim, it's also for Kahanim. So Rebbe is the author of our Mishnah. So the Gemara, Rabbi asked his Rebbe, Rav Yosef, Rabbi's teacher was Rav Yosef, Amalei Abayus, Abayus said, Dafka Kamamar, are you saying it pedantically that Rebbe is the author of the Mishnah because he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Rebbe Savar like Rabbi Yehuda. Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda that Kahanim get a kapara with the Soyer Mishtaleah. Aval, would you say that the Mishnah could be Rabbi Huda loy savar like a Rebbe? Rabbi Huda does not hold like Rebbe, because only Rebbe is the one that holds that Yom Kippur brings a kapara without any tshuva. Rabbi Huda does not hold like Rebbe. Is that what you meant to say? Oy Dilma, or maybe you say mid Rebbe savar like Rabbi Huda, since Rebbe holds like Rabbi Huda, and therefore the entire Mishnah is Rebbe, and he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that the Sarya Mishtaleach is for Kahanim as well. Af Rabbi Yehuda, Savala Kanamik Rebbe. You can say our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, and he holds like Rebbe that Yom Kippur brings about a kapara even if you don't do tshuva. So really, you don't have to say that the author of a Mishnah is Rebbe. You can say our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. So why did Rav Yosef say that the Mishnah goes according to Rebbe? Because Orcha de Milsa Katani, you're saying it in a very polite way, that the Talmud Sovalak Rebbe, that it's better to say that Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda rather than to say that Rebbe, who's the student, holds like his teacher Rabbi Yehuda, rather than to say Rabbi Yehuda, the teacher, holds like Rebbe. So that's why you said it. So Amalei, so Rav Yosef said to Abaya in Dafka Kamina. I meant to say it very precise. Rebbe Savar like Rabbi Yehuda. Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Like the Sorry Hamishtaleach is even for Kahanim. Av Rabbi Yehuda, like Savar like Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold of this unique opinion of Rebbe that Yom Kippur is Mechapar even if you do tshuva. Because I'm going to prove to you that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion himself is that Yom Kippur is not Mechapar if you don't do tshuva. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, I would think Yom Kippur brings about atonement, even if you don't do tshuva. Bidinu, it makes perfect sense. The Chatas and the Asham bring about atonement. A regular carbon, you could get atonement, and Yom Kippur brings about atonement. Just like a Chatas and Asham, if someone's Machal Shabbos and have to bring a carbon chatas, let's say, you only get an atonement, not just by bringing the animal, but you also have to do tshuva. Av Yom Kippur and mechaper ella al shavim. Only so you also Yom Kippur is mechaper only if you do tshuva. So that's how would it say. Yet you need to do tshuva. But then I could say the other way. Malachatas v'asham, just like a chatas v'nashim. Most of the time, most of the time, a chatas is only if you do something by mistake. There are times that you bring a carbon chatas and asham, even if you did it on purpose. But for the most part, you bring an animal for a carbon only if you did it by mistake. So therefore, it's a weaker type of atonement. Yom Kippurim, but Yom Kippur Yom Kippur could bring about atonement even for an avera that you did on purpose, just like you did it by mistake. And therefore, since Yom Kippur is all that powerful, I would think it could be mechaper on even if you did it on purpose, just like you did it by mistake. It should bring about a kapara, whether you do tshuva, whether you don't do tshuva. I would have such a pre-thought. Talmud Bavli the Brisa says, ach chilek. Ach means Yom Kippur is ach. B'Yom Kippurim it says the word ach. And every ach in the Torah is limited to teach you that sometimes Yom Kippur is not a kapara. You only if you don't do tshuva, Yom Kippur is not going to bring a kapara. So this is a brisa. Now, who's the author of this brisa? Stam Sifra. Who's the author of Sifra, which is like a brisa's Sefer Vayikra? Mani. Who is that author of the brisa? Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the author of those brisas. And who is a Talmud of Rabbi Kiva? V'kama, and he said, Shavim en, only if you do tshuva, yes, you get a kapara. Loi shavim loi, if you don't do tshuva, you're not going to get a kapara. So we see Rabbi Yehuda, this doesn't hold like his student Rabbi, who holds that Yom Kippur, you get a kapara even if you don't do tshuva. Rabbi Yehuda, no, he says you need to do tshuva on Yom Kippur, and if not, you're not going to get kapara. So that's the opinion of the Sifra, which is Rabbi Yehuda, that you need to do tshuva. So now the Gemara continues this concept. This of Arami, Sifra, Stam Sifra. Then I'll ask you a stira between two brises from the Sifra, which is our brises that are on Chumash Vayikra. The Tanya, there's another bright that says, Yochal lo yehi Yom Kippur mechapa. I would think that Yom Kippur only brings about atonement. Elohim Kain only. His honor boy, if you fast, Ukroy Mikra Kodesh, and you daven, lo yasu by malacha, and you don't do malacha. What happens? The guy is not from. Lo yasana boy, he's not fasting Yom Kippur. Ikar Mikra Kodesh, he's not davening on Yom Kippur. Lasu by malacha, and he's doing work on Yom Kippur. How do you know you also get a kapara? Talmud Bavli, the pasuk says, Yom Kippurim hu. You get a kapara, no matter what. You're not keeping Yom Kippur, you're still going to get a kapara. So doesn't this sifra argue and contradict the previous sifra, which says shavim and loy shavim loy? Only if you do tshuva, you get a kapara. And here it says Yom Kippur is makapar, no matter what. Amar Abaye, you're right. Loy kasha. Ha Rebbe. The second sifra must be authored by somebody else, Rebbe, who holds that you don't need to do tshuva. For Ha Rabbi Yehuda, in the first brisa, the first sifra goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rava says Hava Ha Rabbi Yehuda. They both Hava Ha Rebbe. They both go like Rebbe. But what's the first brisa talking about? That you need to do tshuva. That's only by a specific avera that Yom Kippur is not mechaper. Unless you do tshuva. Rebbe bekaris the chorus of Yom Kippur, that the chorus of eating on Yom Kippur, doing eating on Yom Kippur, or doing malacha on Yom Kippur, doing malacha on Yom Kippur, that Yom Kippur is not going to bring about a kapara. You need to do tshuva for that, because you're violating the day itself, and the day itself has a chorus. If you're going to say that, no, Yom Kippur is a flat blank check, that you get a kapara, even for violating Yom Kippur, then chorus the Yom Kippur will be less late. Then why did the Torah, according to your Rebbe, write a concept of chorus of Yom Kippur if you automatically can never get chorus? Because automatically you're going to get a kapara. So why did the Torah write you're getting chorus in Yom Kippur? It must be that you must do tshuva for that chorus. So the Gemara says, Alam alai. Maybe, how do you know? Mishkachas law, you can get a chorus, kegoin, the Avad Belayla, you did the Avera at night, umis, and you died at night. Now the kapara of Yom Kippur only comes during the daytime. Because you didn't have the day of Yom Kippur to bring about kapara. Because the truth is that Yom Kippur day, if you finish the day, then you get kapara. But if you just, ate and did malach at night and then died at night, he got karis for that. Because he didn't have the kapara of Yom Kippur. That's why the Torah wrote that you can get kapara, you get karis if you do malacha on Yom Kippur, if you do it at night. So the Gemara says, Ela Ema. My question is, we go to my base, karis Yimamala Rebbe Leslie. The Torah says that if you do malacha during the day, right, you get karis. How could that be if automatically you're getting a kapara? If you do malacha during the day, Rebbe says Yom Kippur is mechaper whether you do tshuva or not. So how is it possible to get karas during the day? So the Gemara says, Alam alai, it's possible to get karas. Meshkachas law, the achol you ate a piece of meat, a piece of duck, and you got choked, and you died. That you didn't have a second after the avera of Yom Kippur. Means you can't be violating the Avera and get kapara on Yom Kippur. You have to have a second of within Yom Kippur that you're not violating the Avera. So if a person ate a piece of meat and got choked on it and died, that's how he got karas on Yom Kippur. And he didn't have the kapara of Yom Kippur. Iname, the achos samach lishkiyas chama, you ate right before sunset. The loy have a shoyis the kapurale, that he didn't have a second in the day after he did the Avera. And in order to bring about a kapara of the Avera, you have to have at least a second of Yom Kippur. And if you didn't have that second, so therefore you get the karas. Bottom line is, Rava's teretz is not a good teretz. We have a stira between the two sifras. One says you need to do tshuva, one says you don't. And the best teretz is the second one goes according to Rabbi, and the first one is Rabbi Huda, who says you still need to do tshuva. Another 2 minutes, and then we'll stop. Mishnah said, Echad Yisrael v'Echad Kohen Mashiach. Kohen Mashiach gets a kapara with the Sarya Mashtalea. Says the Gemara, Al Gufa Kasha. It's the Mishnah, it contradicts itself. Echad Yisrael v'Echad Kadav v'Echad Kohen Mashiach. The Mishnah says that the Kohen Mashiach the Kohanim get kapara with the Sarya Mashtalea. So there's no difference between a regular Jew and a Kohen. Then the Mishnah says, Ma ben Yisrael Kahan and Kohen Mashiach. What's the difference between a Jew and a regular Kohen? They both. So that's a steer in the Mishnah itself. Rabbi Yehuda explained the Mishnah. Hachi kama. Echid Yisrael v'echad kahanim v'echad kamishim mischach b'shar mishtaleach b'shar averis. Every avera, a kohen and a Jew get the kapara through the sa'ir hamishtaleach. Ve'ein chilik b'neihem. There's no difference between them. Uma ben Yisrael kahanim v'kohen Mashiach. But there is one difference regarding another avera. Not every avera, but tumas migdash mikagdashav. There's a difference. Shapar, the par of the koyin mechapar kahanim altumas migdash kedashav. The seir hapnimi, the seir that was brought inside the base of migdash, that is mechapar on a Yisrael, a regular Jew, on tumas migdash kedashavs. And the Gemara concludes, money. Who's our Mishnah going like? Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya we learned in a braysa. The chiper es migdash hakodesh ze lifnei lifnim. The chipa migdash hakodesh means that if someone is tamei and stayed inside the kodesh kedashim, you get that's what this animal is coming to be mechaper. As oil moed ze heichal. If you metama the heichal, mizbeach k'mashmoy mistama mizbeach hapnimi yichape elazars. These are the azars. Kahanim k'mashmoy, regular kahanim. Am kakol el Yisrael yichaper el elvim. Kushvu kula l'chapara achas. Everybody gets one kapara. Shemekaprim b'shar mishtaleach b'shar averis. The kahanim and the Yisraelim all have one kapara regarding other averis. Regarding any other averis, they get kapara with the sarya hamishtalech. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Shimon says no. Keshem shadam sar pnim mechabal Yisrael tumas migdash kadashav. Thus, just like the sarya pnimi is mechaper on a regular Jew on tumas migdash kadashav, with the blood, just the blood of the pnimi. Kachdam apar mechapal kahanim she'al tumas migdash kadashav. So also the blood of the kahanim of the par that the kohen brought is mechaper on tumas migdash kadashav, because the kohen brought a par and a sa'ir pnimi. Remember that. So just like the blood brought about a kapara for the kahanim and tumas migdash kadashav, so also the dam of the pnimi brought about a tumas migdash kadashav for Yisrael. But there was also a vidu on the par and a vidu on the sa'ir hamishtalech, not as a vidu on sar pnim. Kshem shavidu sar mishtaleach mechapal Yisrael b'shar averes kach vidu shal yam par mechapal kahanim b'shar averes. The kahanim don't need the sar mishtaleach. The kahanim, according to Rab Shimon, the kamim, according to Rab Shimon, get a kapara from the vidu that the kohen did on the par. The vidu that the kohen did on the par, they get a kapara on shar averes. The par itself is mechaper for a kohen to mismigdash kedashav. The sorya mishtaleach is mechaper for a regular Jew. So that's the opinion of Rab Shimon. Another half a minute. Rab Shimon, havade hishvu, but isn't the two sa'irs the same? They're doing the same thing, the par and the sa'ir of the shtaleh. Yes, my hushvu, the b'nei kaparnu. They're both bringing about a kapara. Miu kol chad v'chad mechapar denashe. Every Jew and every kohen has their own set of way they're getting kapara. A Jew gets his kapara with the sa'ir, and the kohen gets his kapara with the par. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. My time in the Rabbi Shimon. What's the reason of Rabbi Shimon? The pasuk says, "V'lokach hashnei hasirim." You take the two goats, right? You do the girl. Iskas shara mishtaleach v'sara nasufnim. There's a comparison between the shara mishtaleach to the shara that's done inside. Ma shara nasufnim ein mechapal kahanim atus mikdash kedashav k'sim b'yashel am. The shara pnimi is exclusively for Yisraelim. Af shara mishtaleach and mechapal kahanim al shara ve'ir. Then the Sorry HaMishtalech is only exclusively for Yisrael and not for a Kohen. Just like the Sorry Pnimi is for Yisrael, the Sorry HaMishtalech is for Yisrael. Concludes the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Amalach. Rabbi Yehuda says, but the Pasuk compares the Sorry Pnimi with the Sorry Chitz. Lahachi Itzkash, they're compared in one way. That's teaching you that the Sa'ir that you do, the girls, have to be look-alike, they have to be the same height, and they have to be valued the same. But Einachanami, Yehuda says the Sari Mishtaleach is not only mechaper for a Jew al Shar Averis, but it's also mechaper for a Kohen on Shar Averis. Whereas Rabbi Shimon holds a Kohen is mechap on Shar Averis through the vidu of the par that the Kohen brought on that day. Okay, we'll stop over here and we'll continue with this discussion tomorrow.